watching this, then it means I figured out how to put a video on the internet. And we should all just be really impressed with that, I think. I decided to start a Booktube channel at the suggestion of my friend Shannon, who has one. And I thought, what better way to start a channel than with a book haul? So I have about, I want to say 20 books here to haul today. I thought that'd be a pretty decent amount to start out with. And I got them from various places, some from Barnes & Noble, Half Price Books, a couple places on the internet, some secondhand shops. I really get my books from pretty much anywhere. There's a variety of books here, and I figured that way you can look and see if the kind of books I like to read are the kind of books that you like to read. So I guess we'll just get started. The first book that I want to show you is 1984 by George Orwell. I don't really read a lot of classics, but this book has been like a hot button book recently. A lot of people have been talking about it. I don't know very much about it other than that it's sort of dystopian, and you know, we're looking into what the world's going to be, and the world's going to be a disaster, and I really like dystopian literature, so I'm gonna give that a shot. Second book I have is called Bad Girls Don't Die, and it's by Katie Lender, I think, if I'm saying it right. So this book I don't know very much about. I picked it up at a book sale where they were selling books in like a convention center. All the books were $2. I just know that it's about this girl in a house who sort of like becomes possessed by some spirit or force in the house, and her sister is kind of like watching as all of this happens and sort of trying to figure out what to do about it. I did find out after I purchased the book that it's part of a series. Fortunately, it's the first book in the series, which means that I can read it, and if I like it, then there should be more. The third book that I have is called All the Words Are Yours. It's a collection of haikus by Taylor Not Gregson. He has two other books out. They're called Chasers of the Light and Wildly Into the Dark. All of his books are poetry, and I really like them because most of the pages are very pretty things. There's a lot of like art incorporated into the poems that he writes, and obviously all of these ones are the same length and style because they are all supposed to be haikus, but the other two books of his, they're not haikus, they're just poems that he writes, and I really enjoyed the first two, so I thought that this would be a good book to read. The next book is called Martin the Warrior, and it's part of a series of books called Redwall. The author's name is Brian Jacks. I probably butchered that too, but you know, it is what it is. So if you've never heard of Redwall, Redwall is this is a fantasy book. It's this fictional world where mice and different creatures are the main characters. We have mice who are kind of like the good guys. We have rats and snakes and hawks and things like that. And they're all feuding over different things. It's sort of set up like a lot of them live in an abbey, so it's like older medieval time setting. And I don't know very much about Martin, the character himself. I just read the original Redwall book many years ago, probably like 8 years ago, and I really liked it, and I found this book again at the convention center, so I decided that I would give it a try. The next book is called Let It Snow, and it's a book by 3 authors. You can see them there on the cover actually, so I'm not going to say them all. All I know about this book is that I read a lot of John Green. I've read almost all of John Green's books, and I'm going to read Turtles All the Way Down whenever that comes out too. I really like YA books, so I mean, this is going to be a book that I'm going to like. It's about, I'm just going to read it off the back so I can figure out what it's about. It's about Christmas time, and it looks like it's like a love romance kind of thing set in Christmas time. So this is going to be on my TBR, but I'm probably not going to read it for a while because I'm going to want to read it when it's winter, so you can look for a review about that in a couple months if I don't decide that this is a total disaster. We'll have to see. The next book is another classic. I know I say I don't read classics, I really don't, but this is Fahrenheit 451, and it's by Ray Bradbury. Again, I don't know a lot about this book. I know that it's about books getting burned, and it's about politics, and it's about like a lot of larger theme type things. I've heard a lot of buzz about this book recently. I'm not sure why it's sort of coming back right now. But this one I just wanted to go in blind, so I am going to give it a shot. It's not a book that I immediately plan on reading, but I'm hoping to get to it within the next few months. Okay, so this book is An Abundance of Katherines by John Green. It is one of the few John Green books that I have not yet read, but I'm going to read it very soon. The main character in the book is a boy who only dates girls named Catherine. He's dated like, there it is, 19 Katherines and Counting. It's about him and having these relationships and how he's a one-type girl kind of guy. And I mean, it's going to be John Green, it's going to be a YA, it's going to be funny and quirky, and it's probably going to have a manic pixie dream girl whose name may or may not be Catherine, but I'm going to give it a shot. The next book is called, oh, you can't see the title there, let me turn it. The next book is called I'll Give You the Sun, and it is by Jandy Nelson. Probably saying that wrong too, that's okay. Again, I don't know a lot about this book other than that it was in the YA section at Barnes & Noble, and I kind of liked the cover. I kind of liked, there it is, I'll Give You the Sun. I liked all the colors and I thought it was a very attractive cover. Sometimes I do judge a book by its cover, and I will pick up books just because I like the way that they look. This book, I know, is about two twins and sort of the telling of their lives. One of the twins, Jude and Noah. Okay, Jude and Noah are the twins' names. One of them tells about their early years, then one of them tells about their later years as they get older. And I don't really know anything else about it, but I'm gonna read it. Next book is called The Gift of Therapy, an open letter to a new generation of therapists and their patients. And it is by Irvin Yalom, who's a very famous psychotherapist. I picked up this book because I'm a therapist. That's what I do for a living, and I'm always interested in new books, new things in the literature, especially if it's not like the self-helpy type books that you find like in that one section at Barnes & Noble. Not that kind of stuff, but like this was in the psychology section, and I happen to know that Yalom is like a trustworthy guy when it comes to psychotherapy. A lot of the textbooks in graduate school that I had were written or co-written by him. So it's basically just a bunch of like lessons on therapy for therapists, how to help them treat clients better and more effectively. It's a book that I know I'm going to want to take my time reading, so I'll probably save it for like a rainy day. This feels like a rainy day kind of book. Like a warm fuzzy feelings, rainy day, stories about clients kind of book. So I hope it rains soon. And the next book that I have is called I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zusak. Did I say that one wrong too? I don't know. Again, I don't really know anything about this book. A theme for books that I will probably haul in the future is that a lot of them I don't know very much about, and I prefer to not know a lot about a book when I go into it. I'll pick it up if I like something from the author, if I like the cover art, if it was recommended to me. That's how I choose a lot of my books. This book I picked up because I really liked The Book Thief when I read it, which is another book that this guy wrote. What I know about this book is that it's about an underage cab driver who doesn't have much of a future, kind of like really doesn't have anything going for him, and he gets something mysterious in the mail, and he becomes the messenger for whatever it is that's happening, whatever he's getting in the mail. And so the book is sort of about, the things he's being asked to do. Is it helping people? Is it hurting people? Who is asking him to do these things and why? Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this one. The next book I have is called Love Letters to the Dead. So this book is by an author that I've never read anything from before, Ava Delaria. This book is about a girl who is reading a notebook full of letters that her sister wrote, and her sister only writes letters to people who are dead, so people like celebrities like Kurt Cobain and stuff like that. She writes letters to people who are dead, and this is about her sister reading the letters, because I guess her sister died. So I don't know if it's if she died from like an illness, or she completed a suicide. I don't know how she died, but she died, and so her sister is reading all these letters that she wrote to people who are also dead. The next book that I have is called Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. Wow, that's a long title. The author is Benjamin Sains. How would you say that? Anybody smarter than me? Is it Benjamin Sains? So this book, I know that, it was a suggestion of my friend Shannon. She read this book earlier on in the year, and so I picked it up. I saw it at Barnes & Noble. I know that it's a love story about two guys and their adventures. I think their adventures driving along in a car. That might or might not be right. I don't really read a lot of romance. I don't really leave a lot of love stories, but every once in a while I am in the mood for them, so I like to have a couple in stock just in case I decide that that's what I want to pick up that day. Speaking of love stories, I have See Me by Nicholas Sparks. So the only thing that I have read by Nicholas Sparks is Safe Haven. I read that a couple years ago before it went out to be a movie. I really liked the book when I read it. I really liked the movie when it came out. Again, I'm not really big into romance, but I like to have a couple like feel-good books, because eventually, you know, every once in a while, you know, if you read all these books with sad endings, you kind of want to like have something to help your heart from stopping to hurt so much. So I like to keep like one Nicholas Sparks on my TBR. That way if I need it, I can just kind of pull it out. This looks to be like a bigger book, a pretty decent sized book that he's written. I don't know if you can see how thick that is. But it's a pretty decent sized book for Nicholas Sparks, I think. It's about this down on his luck kind of guy who's like in and out in prison, and a daughter of Mexican immigrants who I think she went to law school, and sort of like their romance story and how it becomes entwined. Yeah, so I'm gonna give that a shot someday. A lot of the books that I've read recently, though, haven't been making me too sad, so it's probably gonna be a while before I pick this one up. The next book that I have is called Everyone Brave is Forgiven, and this book is by Chris Cleave. All I know about this book is that it's set in London in 1939. It is about a lady who signs up for the war. Her name is Mary North. And she signs up because she wants to fight in the war, but they end up making her a school teacher, and she's not very happy about that. She wanted to fight in the war, and it's about her and this other guy who I think gets called to war, but he doesn't want to be in the war, so he like avoids it and ignores it, and they end up crossing paths, and it's sort of about their story in London whenever this political unrest is happening. I don't really read a lot of like traditional fiction books. Like this book was it was in the like adult section at Barnes & Noble, which I usually read like the YA section. I don't know, I don't like to read books like this because I'm not very big into history. I don't know a lot about history. I mean, this book was set in 1939, and I don't even know what war that was, and it tells me when and where it was set. But actually the reason that I picked up this book is because I really like the title, Everyone Brave is Forgiven. I really like themes of bravery in literature, and like nobility and like Knights of the Round Table kind of stuff. I really like that. So I picked up this book solely for the title, but I plan on giving it a shot, and maybe if I like it, then I can venture into the fiction section a little bit more often. Next book that I have is called We Were Never Here. It is a book by Jennifer Gilmore. I've never read anything by Jennifer Gilmore. I found this book in a YA section. All I know about it is it's about a girl who ends up in a hospital. She ends up having some kind of like mysterious illness, and it alters her life, and this boy that she has like a crush on comes and visits her in the hospital, and it's about their stories becoming intertwined, and the general theme of it, as she gets more well, he becomes sick. But I think it's like, I don't think it's like physically sick. I think it's like he becomes like emotionally and mentally unwell. So it's about their two stories coming together, which you'll see is a theme in a lot of YA literature if you read it, which is why I read it. I think that that's interesting. yeah, and I think that the cover's pretty too. Like, look at that. The cover, two people hanging out on sunset. I think that's really nice cover art. The next book that I have is called The Merciless 2 by Daniel Vega. This book is a part of a book in a series. She actually just wrote the third book for the series, which is just called The Merciless 3. Actually, if you look on the back, you can see the first book, The Merciless, it's in pink, and then she has another book with the skull, and I haven't read that one. So I got this book when I got the first book, Merciless and Merciless 2. And I thought because they were on sale and if I liked it, then I wanted to be able to have both. I didn't really like Merciless 1, the original one. I think I gave it like a 3-star on Goodreads. But now that I have this one and now that she wrote a third one, I sort of feel obligated to read them. I sort of feel obligated to read books that are series if I start one, even if I don't end up liking it very much. But I have hope. I have hope that this book is going to be better. The general theme of this book is that the first one was about a girl who becomes, I guess she doesn't become possessed. They lead you to believe that she's sort of always been like a demon or something else the whole time, and that just maybe she didn't know about it. But it's about this girl in like a small group of other girls. She like moves schools and makes friends with these girls, and they end up being into some like really weird shit, some like cult type shit. And they like torture this one other girl who's new, and the one other girl ends up like unleashing all kinds of like demon voodoo on them, and like everyone dies except for the main character, Sophia. And then this book I know is about Sophia getting moved into like a Catholic boarding school or a Christian boarding school or something, and like struggling to figure out like, is there something wrong with me? Am I possessed? I'm pretty sure that this book involves like some sort of like exorcism from her classmates. So it's like a YA cult kind of book. So I'm hoping that it's better than the first one. The next book that I have is called The Young Elites by Marie Lu. Marie Lu. So this book I don't know very much about. I know that it's a fantasy. I don't tend to read a lot of fantasy. Sometimes I find that there's like too many characters for me, or that the plot is just a little bit too unbelievable, and unbelievable fantasy. Like, I get it, but it's just not really my thing. But this one is about, let's see, main character Adelina, who survives something that's a blood fever. A decade ago, it swept across her nation. Most of the children died. The ones who were left with strange markings. Her black hair turned silver. Her lashes went pale. She has a jagged scar over her left eye. Her father believes that she's an abomination. She's set to ruin the family's good name and standing in the way of their fortune. But there are rumors going around that they're survivors of the blood fever, possess more than scars. They have mysterious powers and gifts. And then there's two other main characters. There's a main character named Turen, who works for a king, and who is, his job is to seek out and destroy the young elites, which are the children who survive the blood fever, who have these like scars and deformities because of the dark secrets and because of the dark powers that they possess. And then the third character's name is Enzo. He's a part of the Dagger Society, which is like a sect of the young elites who set out to find other kids who are like them so that they can band together and use their powers for good. So yeah, I picked up this book because of the cover art. I did know that it was a fantasy. I don't read a lot of fantasy. But actually this book is a part of a series I found out later, so if I do like it, then maybe I can get into a fantasy series. This next book is called How to Hang a Witch. It's by Adriana Mather, who, yes, is part of the whole like Cotton Mather family. That's actually a thing. The author of this book is part of that, and she basically writes a story about a girl who moves to Salem and is descended from the name Mather. So if you know anything about Salem during like the witch trials, Cotton Mather was part of like a family that set out to destroy a lot of people who were called witches. I believe that he was like a priest, maybe, or a reverend, sorry. I think he was a reverend, but his family had a lot of affluence and they had a lot of power during that time, and they had a lot of like political movement during that time. So it's about, you know, the girl with the last name moving into Salem and a lot of people not taking very kindly to that, and also it's about like what if witches really still are real? So I like books about witches. I like thriller horror kind of things. So I picked this up because I thought the title was interesting, How to Hang a Witch. Next book is called The Weight of Zero by Karen Fortunati, I think. This book is a mental illness book, a YA book. It is about the main character has bipolar disorder, and the theme around this book is that the character knows that zero is coming for her, so she describes zero as the lows that she feels in her depression. So if you know anything about bipolar disorder, it's like a up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down cycling, where people oscillate between being manic really high and depressed really low. The main character of this book refers to her depression as zero, and she talks about how she'll do anything to stay on the high, stay on the mania, because she knows that this pummeling depression is coming for her, and it is just her story surrounding trying to grapple with what it means to be mentally ill. Last book in the book haul, we have finally come to that time, is called How to Murder Your Life by Kat Marnell. Is that how you say it? Yeah, Marnell, sorry, by Kat Marnell. How to Murder Your Life. So I don't know a lot about this book. I picked it up at a place called Half Price Books, which sells like it sells books for half price. I know that it is about the main character also struggles with, I think it's mental illness and substance use. Let me see. Oh, okay, yeah. So she struggles with mental illness, and okay. So it's about a lot of things actually. So she doctor shops. She uses a lot of pills. She's bulimic. She parties. She doesn't sleep. And it's sort of about how she was an editor for Lucky, which I guess is like a famous like beauty magazine or something like that, and her life sort of starts to spiral out of control with all of the like dangerous and unsafe behaviors that she's doing. And it talks about how she, you know, was in this really stable, solid career that she loved, and she started making all of these choices and basically murdered her life. So I like books that are about mental health and mental illness. I like books that are about like substance use and emotional distress and things like that, probably because of what I do for a living. I really like books like that. Also, I thought that this was a really pretty cover. I mean, the title is interesting too, but this is just like a really nice, like it kind of looks watercolory, and then the back too, if you can see it, has a lot of colors on it. So I just thought that it was a nice looking book, and I've never read anything by this author, but if I like it, then hopefully she has made more books. So that's it. If you have stuck with me through the probably 20 some minutes of this book haul, thank you very much. This was my first video on Booktube. I am super nervous. I am super excited. I am hoping that this is something that I can actually do in the future. If I decide that this wasn't a total disaster, then you will see me for an August wrap-up where I talk about all the books that I read this month in August. So thank you. Bye.